Well, hello again. Welcome back. This is going to talk about something today, and that is the title of the video. This is something from one of the subscribers, Derek, who said something like, could I make some videos or talk about practice and improvisation, or my approach to practice and improvisation. So I thought, sure, Derek, thanks for that. I'd love to. We'll see how this goes. I might do this in two parts, but we'll just start with practice. Now, I did actually have a look at Derek's channel, and Derek's a accomplished drummer, so Derek's not a beginner drummer. He's obviously done plenty of practice. But my thoughts on practice, first of all, are that it's really relative to each individual. I'm going to assume that most of the people, I just assume that people who watch this channel are probably already drummers, probably a bit like Derek. Most of the content on here is not beginner sort of content. So that's one thing that's sort of relative. If you're a starting out drummer, or you're in your early years of playing, then obviously there's a lot of just rudimentary, fundamental stuff that you have to do. But the one thing I would say about practice is establishing the reason why and what it is that you want to achieve by doing the practice. What's the outcome? I'll just turn the record player down a little touch. But yeah, so essentially, what are you practicing for? And everyone's in different circumstances. Do you want to become a working drummer, whatever that is these days? And what does that mean? Are you, do you just want to play, do you have a day job and a family and all of that? And you have a band, and you do a gig once a month or every 6 weeks, and, you want things to practice to get the best result for that. Do you want to, end up being a session player? Do you want to specialize, like be a metal guy or something? So I would say that these are things to consider and to think about, whoever you are, to decide what it is that you need to practice, right? So for example, if you've got a day gig and you have limited hours to practice, and say you're in a band, well then I would be practicing what I need to practice for the band. And that'll determine your practice schedule. So maybe you go do the gig, and you have a think about the gig afterwards, and you're like, maybe you record it or something, and you go, I'm racing those fills, or I keep speeding up in medium shuffles, or I slow down playing sambas, or whatever it might be. So then you can take that to that piece of time that you have in the practice room and work on that, because that's going to, be the best thing for your circumstance. Maybe you live in a unit and you don't have access to drums all the time. But again, it's like, well, what are you trying to achieve? I've been in situations like that, and I've always looked for somewhere, like a warehouse or just a rehearsal studio. I've come across some great places, 24-hour rehearsal studios, and you got your gear set up there all the time. And I'd be doing that after working in a kitchen all day, because I wanted to, because that was part of my drive, and that's what I felt I needed to do, to continue playing, getting towards the level of playing that I want to play at still. So there's that, you know. And what are you practicing for? What do you really like? What do you want to play? What music do you want to play? It's a funny thing. It really depends on each individual, and you need to make that decision about what do you want to do with your drumming? Are you happy to do it as a hobby and have a part-time band? Do you want to progress it and play with higher level musicians, or do you want to try and break in and be part of the drumming community? Once you know what that is, or of course you can just play as well. But I'm assuming that people generally have these little goals, whether they're unconscious or not. They want to be able to play things. So that's it. That makes it easy. The reality of it is, let's use an example of someone like Virgil Donati, an Australian. Well, because of what Virgil's done and what he's created, just to maintain that would require a tremendous amount of constant playing. That is just a life dedication. So when you're hearing and seeing someone like Virgil play, this is someone who is utterly dedicated to just drums, music every day, you know. I'm not sure Virgil has a family or anything like that. So it's a different type of existence. Yeah, so when you're seeing something like that, you have to take that into consideration. And I think it's an MIT Thursday clinic, where Virgil he was talking about double bass drum playing, and about how some people have fast twitch muscles in more abundance than others, and that he sees himself, he's not one of those people. And he said he has to do a lot of practice to maintain his feet, you know. Lots of stories about Virgil having his practice kits in hotel rooms, and so you've got to be willing to do that as well, right? If you're looking at players like that, if we're talking about that top tier, you've got to be willing to go that far with it. That's just the reality of it. Always, for some reason, music can sometimes fall into this magical space, and I always like to just replace anything else with music. So let's say motorcycle racing, you know, everyone kind of learns the fundamentals of movement and weight distribution and power and how bikes work and how things respond and all of that. But really the thing to do that everyone's doing is getting on the bike every day and getting out on the track and finding the flaws and then working on those things. But again, that's talking about it if you're one of those drummers who's, you know, wants to be able to play what you see some of those top level players like Virgil or someone playing like. So you've got to be realistic about it. The beauty of it, though, that's different from sports is that it's creativity. So you can use that to your advantage in some way. And many people have. And there are those examples of drummers who are pretty straight ahead drummers, but they just have a thing. They have a vibe and a feel, and it's great. So there's that. I also think that practicing things, less things for longer periods of time. So you may have a couple or a few things. Let's assume that you're working a bit. You know, you can play, so you're not learning new grooves and how to play funk, and you know all that stuff. You're sort of trying to expand a bit. I would work on fewer things and spend more time on them. And by more time, I even mean like months, 6 months. You would have a few exercises that you would just cycle. And that's it. Keep it really simple. And then maybe do a bit of maintenance practice if you need to. Or like I said, you were dragging on the 16th note funk stuff on the gig, so you might spend 30 minutes on the metronome and try and feel that out or something. I'll just flick this record over. May as well. Give us a little tick. But yeah, I guess we'll call that functional practice. So figure out what it is that is realistic for you and what you need and what your circumstances are and what is achievable. And try to balance that. So, as far as improvisation goes, well, improvisation can also be a part of practice. Actually, I want to just quickly say something that also stay away from the internet too much, There's sort of like a cyber world of drumming now. I'm not sure how relevant that is to the real world. So there are a lot of like online YouTuber, Instagrammer drummers now. And I guess that could be the thing that you practice for, to build your online profile. That's a whole other discussion though, we might have another time. But yeah, improvisation, that one's a little bit more difficult for me because I always did it. I was kind of improvising as a little kid. That was kind of how I learnt, which is another way to practice, but copying people. So I was just trying to copy Buddy Rich when I was 10 years old. I played traditional grip. I was always trying to get the one-handed roll going, and I thought Buddy was the king, so I just emulated. And then you go through different stages and copy different people. So improvisation always came very naturally to me. But one thing I could say about it is, obviously we call it improvisation, but nothing's ever really improvised, is it? We're improvising with things we already know. We're never really playing anything new. A saxophone player is never going to play a new note or something. So they're all things that we have in our toolbox that we're improvising with. And so once again, it's try to break it down to something simple. So a real simple example would be take a simple phrase. Maybe the last line that the saxophone player plays is ba da 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 da. So that's your line. Do da 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 da. Whatever. All I'm playing is you're just vamping on do 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 da do 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 da do 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 da do do do, right? Depending on where you're at, let's say for a second that you don't quite have the freedom yet, so you've got to refer to stickings and things. Well, then do that and pick one, or one or two, or one, and start moving it around and keeping this vamp or this one phrase in your head. It's if you can, I don't know if you can sing. So let's say you're going to not do like a solo thing. Let's say you're going to play a groove. You don't know what you're going to play, or you can just think of a bass line or think of some random, don't know if it's going to be any good. But you could be, like but dugga don't chicka dugga don't chicka dugga dugga don't chicka dugga don't dun 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 dugga don't chicka dugga don't shoot chicka dugga dugga don't chicka dugga don't down down dugga bop bop up bop dip dun 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 dip baba dog bone chicka ding ding chicka did it chicka ding da bam brum. So I'm just improvising some basic little tune and then playing over the top of it. Anyone listening doesn't know that that's going on in my head, but that's what I'm improvising over, So you could try that. I know that there are some people that find that difficult, but you could try that. I mean, can you sing stuff and play along at the same time? Or can you come up with a basic vamp? And that's the whole basis of your entire solo, is just to expand on one simple idea. And yeah, eventually it seems to come more easily to some than others, but hopefully there comes a point which actually you can do any time, is you've actually got to let go of whatever your tools are and stickings and anything and have a little faith or have trust. You've got to take the chance to let go and just let that other part of your mind take over, And in the practice room, well, it's the perfect place to do that, because there's no mistakes. No one's going to get cross with you. So I'd be doing that as well, is just forgetting about patterns and stickings and anything use whatever you have to use. You can use the sound of the drums if you want. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Get into that. Da da ba boom, ba boom, boom. Da da ba boom, ba boom, boom. And just start to let go and just see what happens. And if you crash or you beef it doesn't really matter. If you got to have a Cooper's ale, then do so. But definitely do that, Once you've done your practice, this is where you're figuring things out and you're tightening things up and you're analysing stuff and trying to improve on it. But then when you're going to improvise something, that's what you're doing. You're no longer, hopefully, do you need to be in touch with that. It's just coming out. And it'll come out however it does for you at that particular stage in your development. And you slowly introduce new ideas, and it's just weird. Over the years, you find yourself going through different phases, and different things get added and different things get thrown away. If you look at any drummer, any musicians, once again, there's some repetition to improvisation. Dennis Chambers had like a drum solo that went for 10 years, you know. It was almost like he was playing the same drum solo all the time, but slowly developing it. It felt like that to me. And you've heard that from jazz players about, you know, tunes are developing over night after being played over and over again, so that actually last night's solo isn't even finished yet, you know, it just carries over into the next night. So, hopefully I said something there. Let me know what you think, or if you have any other questions. Again, practice was really, the main point was for it to be relevant and relative to you and your circumstance and your outcomes and what you hope to achieve by playing the drums. And improvisation was really just that. With whatever tools you have, at whatever stage you're at, you can use a vamp, see if you can get a vamp going in your own head, create a vamp on the drums, and try to let go as much as possible, you know, in the world where there are no mistakes, and try to detach from that analytic mind that you have in practice, you know, and record some of those things. Just let go, don't worry, just, you know. You remember like Miles saying something like, whatever you think to play, you know, in that second where you're going to play something else. So you can try that as well. If you're finding yourself repeating all the same licks all the time, try to catch yourself just before you go to do that lick you always do, and just play anything else, something else. Doesn't matter if you stuff it up. So I think I'll leave it there for now. Those are my thoughts on practice and improvisation. And I'll look through this, put some little time codes, and I might go downstairs and demonstrate some of the things that I've talked about. And hopefully that might be helpful. So thanks again. Thanks to Derek. And I hope that was useful. Let me know, and I can talk a lot more about it. I try not to not waffle on. Got some videos. We'll get some more playing. So play some tunes coming up. 99 subscribers. Cheers. See ya.